Hello, my name is Lee and I am G3 Pottery. I'm a hobbyist potter who loves getting his hands dirty and playing with clay. Hopefully my video today will help encourage you to try something new or maybe just a fresh idea to help you in your journey with this amazing media. So just sit back and enjoy the video. Welcome to my garage studio. Now that it's cooling off a little bit, it's kind of tolerable to get out here. It's been kind of hot over the summer. So anyway, today I'm going to show you guys how I make some of my mugs. I'm going to do some jack-o'-lantern mugs today. I just designed these 3D stamps, little roller stamps here in different jack-o'-lantern faces that I'm going to put in some handmade mugs here. I designed my rollers to fit in the MKM RH1 handle, so that way I can just open it up, slide my roller in, and it's ready to roll onto the clay. So anyway, and then when I have a little bit of leftover clay, I've also designed some rollers with herb names on it. Like I've got garlic here, brought out rosemary, and I brought out basil. So I 3D printed a little steak mold. So any leftover clay I have left for my mugs, before I reclaim it, I'll go ahead and put a little texture, stamp it out, put some name on it, make some little herb garden steaks that I can glaze in the thing. So anyway, so today we're going to be working with the clay, which is my Cinco Rojo. I get it from Armadillo Clay down in Austin. I really love working with this. It works well. The color's beautiful. It glazes well. So anyway, I really like this clay. So we're going to be using it today for my mug. So I'm going to be cutting off some clay. We're going to be using my homemade slab roller, and I may show you this to you in another video of kind of how I made it and what it is. But works amazing for rolling out slabs. So it gets me going. So anyway, we're going to roll some slabs out, and then we will let them dry out a little bit, and then we will come back and start making mugs. So anyway, it's glad to have you guys with me this morning. So all right, let me start off and cut us some slabs. You may hear some noise in the background, and that's my 3D printer printing some molds for some plaster castings I'm going to play with later. Let's see. So anyway, just cut me off a slab here, and then I'll go over to my slab roller, and we'll work on that some. So let me turn this just a little. Okay, so I've got my slab roller. I've actually gone in, and for my slab mats, I use just canvas or duck cloth. I've cut them up, hemmed the edges so they don't fray. The last batch really frayed. And I've labeled it for each of my clay. So that way, if I have a dark clay here that I'm using, then I do a Cinco Blanco or another white clay or a lighter clay, a buffalo willow or something that's lighter. Then it doesn't transfer some of the clays back and forth. So I start off, this is a fixed height slab roller. So what I have to do is I have to add different thicknesses underneath in order to get these slab thinner and thinner and thinner. So I start off at the bottom just to get it going. It's, I don't know, 3/4 inch, maybe an inch or so is what the bottom setting is. I'll throw my clay on here. Go ahead and get it started. Lay this down. Put it under my roller. And then a roll. All right. Pick it up, I'll flip it around. And I'll throw a thickness in. I'll start off, I think this is my thickest one. I think it's about 1/4 inch. when I'm done rolling these, they come out about 5 millimeters is kind of where they end up after I'm done. And since I'm just kind of thinning it out right now, I'm not as concerned. When I get to the end, I'll roll it several more times to make sure it's the right thickness. But right now, I'm just trying to get it rolled out. Flip it over again. Let's add another. I think this is about 3/16-ish or so. I can't remember the thickness. So I've got several different types of wood I've cut to this to fit here that I can then control based on which ones I put in, the combination I put them in. I can control the thickness of my slab. Now we'll do our last one. Go ahead and flip it one more time. Let me get it more centered. It's a little bit longer than I normally do it here. I don't want it to squeeze out the edges too bad because then I kind of lose that. And move it down just a hair too. All right, that should do it. I cut this one really close to size, so when we're done, it's gonna be like right at the edge. All right, put my last one. This one's like a real, I usually do the thinnest last. So it does the last final one. It's about maybe an 1/8 inch. This one, this last one is. Anyway, this get all these stack ups, get it to 5 millimeters. Okay, now here's where I'll usually flip in and change it because with the texture of the mat, it restricts how much it pushes and how thin it gets. So I'll usually peel it back this way. Then I can lay it down on here. I'll flip it over. I'll peel it back this way. There. Let me lay it here right in the middle. Smooth it out. I'll flip it over one more time. I can peel it back this way. All right. Now I'll just go ahead and roll it once more. That way it's all loose. And then I get a little bit more. I mean, it doesn't do much, but you can see it's kind of pushing it a little bit further as it thins it out the rest of the way. We have it. We have our slab ready to go. So I'm going to let this sit for just a little bit. There we go. A lot of time I've got, I'm just gonna let this sit for a few minutes. It'll air out a little bit and then we will transfer it over to the board to work on, and I'll probably go ahead and do another slab just to get it ready. Then I'll show you guys kind of how we start making our mugs. All right, I've got the slab moved over to my working surface. One thing I forgot to show you is that I compress the side of the slab before I move it. And I actually just did this and then realized, oh, I didn't tape this. So anyway, what I'll do is I'll go over this because of the canvas, and I kind of like the canvas texture because it does put a good heavy texture in it, and I have to basically compress all of that out. So once I've compressed it enough to get all of the canvas texture out, then it's usually good enough for me to work on. So so I'll go ahead and basically compress this whole side here to get all of the texture out of it. Then I'll go over and to the surface I did. Unfortunately, I just compressed this, but same thing. I'll go over this and compress everything to get the texture out. And that way, like I say, it's workable. The back side has already been textured. Now, once I do flip it, I'll go ahead and compress the, I'm sorry, not texture, I'll compress the back side as well when I do that. So, and I know some of you guys are probably looking around at all of the stuff everywhere in my studio, and I apologize. That's just how I work. I work kind of in a controlled chaos environment. I know where everything is. But I know that drives some people crazy, so I apologize in advance for that. But that's how I work. I try to keep it a little organized. Every now and then I'll come in and clean everything up and put everything away. And then when I start working, I have to pull it all back out again to work. So these are all my common things I use, so they just kind of hang around, unfortunately. So, all right, so I've compressed everything. Now I'm just going to let this sit for a little bit. I want to let it dry out just a little. And then we will start texturing. I've got my, let's see. Trying to figure out which. I've got, this is the, just the cutout I use when I do my mugs for the right size. And this gives you enough room to put a little flap on the front. I actually even 3D printed a little flap. I don't know where, I say everything's right here. I didn't pull it out yet. But anyway, I even 3D printed a little flap thing I could cut to make it even. But, you know, I can do it by hand too. But I put a little wraparound flap, and I'll show you in a little bit what that means. But I made these so I can go in there and kind of lightly sketch out where my mugs are going to be. Then I can texture them. Normally I'll texture the entire surface. Today we're only going to be rolling just the face onto it, and then I'll be cutting it out and then pulling all the excess away. So anyway, let's let it dry a little bit more, and then we'll come back and start to cut and texture. I let the slab sit for a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and just try to start sketching out what I can fit on here. And then I can start to, you know, kind of lay out my pattern. I'm not exactly sure on the diameter yet. Normally, like I was talking about my mugs, this is one of my mugs I made. I talked about the flap. This is kind of a flap I normally will just put on all my designs. A little overlap flap with my little cross stamp I put on it. This is one I textured in trees. This one has a round bottom. I learned a lot of this watching Sarah Pike, a potter out of Canada. It's amazing. Does beautiful work. And watched one of her training things on how to make these mugs using the dome bottoms, and I really enjoy these as well. But for the jack-o'-lantern, I want it to have more volume this way. So I think I'm going to do it as a flat bottom. I'm going to make it smaller. Normally, I mean, I've got all my 3D printed things I use for cutting all my circles. This is the 120 millimeter. This is what I normally use for the bottom, is 120 millimeters. But I want it narrower, so I'm thinking about maybe going down to 85 millimeters is the bottom. So then I can just kind of come out and up to the top, and I want to add, you know, that rounded to it. That or the 100, and I'm kind of deciding. So what I may do is cut all my sides out of this slab and then save the slab that's on the slab roller to do the bottoms once I kind of get it made and kind of see what size it is. Because again, my thought is I want to make the bottom about the same size as the top, and then bellow out the sides. It'll have the jack-o'-lantern stamp in it. So anyway, so let's start off by just kind of laying out what I've got here. trying to figure out the best way to start. I'll start it right up here, right there. And again, oh, and I did find my little stamp I made. This one I just made that I cut those little tabs. I can put on there just to get a consistent shape. I also do it by hand a lot. I'll just go and draw into it and just cut it out too by hand. So I use these little markers. You probably can't really see. It's a little bitty wheel with teeth in it. I use this just to go around the shapes to put light little dots on the clay so I can see where it is. You can also use a needle or anything else, a little needle tool, anything really to do it. So let me go ahead and just kind of start sketching this out to see kind of where the shapes are going to be. It's important if you're doing a full stamping, like if you're going to roll the entire texture, it's important to stamp it first, because stamping it expands the clay and makes it bigger. So you don't want to cut it out first, because then when you roll it, you'll have uneven edges and it just makes everything bigger. So I would stamp it first and then cut it. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of marking off where it would kind of be on there. Then I'll go ahead and just lay down the next one. I'll probably move this over a little bit. Again, I don't want to get too close to the edge, but at the same time, the edges on mine are the ones that overlap. So if it gets a little thinner, I'm not as concerned about that. So you can get a little bit close to the edge. I'll just go ahead for now and just match it up with this one. Typically, again, if I'm rolling them, I want to kind of separate them, because a lot of times I'll roll different stamps on each one. But since these are just be jack-o'-lantern, I can put them right on top of each other. So I'll line that up with the edge. Do this. Like that. And then I'm just going to keep going, all the way down and, till I get down to about here. And then again, that should leave me some good places to do my other stamps over here on the edge. I might be able to get 2 stamps out of it on this side. Maybe one down here for my little garden stakes I'm going to make as well. So anyway, I will continue on with sketching these out, and then I'll show you guys how we lay out the stamps. I think I am ready to stamp these. So again, normally when I texture the entire thing, it doesn't matter. I just roll across it all, texture it all, and then make my mugs. With this one though, I really want, the jack-o'-lantern face to kind of be over here. I don't want it kind of at an angle or this angle. I definitely don't want it over here where it's covered by my flap. So in order to do that, I measure out of my template. If I do the shape of this template with the end up on this side, I need it somewhere in this area so it'll get, where I want it to go. So what I'm gonna do now is just take my little tool. I'm just gonna put a little mark. I'm gonna lay this down, and just up here at the seam, I'm gonna put a little mark at the top that I can go back and just easily smooth back out. Kind of where I want my center to be. All right, so that way it'll be at least close to the right area and it won't be way off, because it's kind of hard once you get these things, start wrapping them, and then realize, I'm way over here at 5 o'clock where I wanted to be at 3 o'clock. So anyway, so I got that marked. All right, so now I'm going to use my roller. I think I'm going to start off with my little girly one, the female with little eyelashes. I'm going to start with her. Again, these I just designed. I use a Fusion 360 Hobbyist, which is a free version of 3D software. I designed these, and I can basically go and just imprint, any image or shape I want on these and just reprint them. I use my resin printer, 3D printer, to print these. It comes out with good quality, about the size I need. I could make them longer, and I could even hand make or 3D print a handle if I wanted, but I just used one I already had, so that's why I had this shape. But a lot of my other shapes, like a lot of my circle templates and all that, I'll use my filament printer, which you might hear, like say, in the background running as I'm doing a mold. So anyway, so here I want to kind of put this one kind of a real lightly about where I want it. I'll back it up off to where it's smooth here, and I can kind of see the face. Then I'm going to apply the pressure and roll across. I don't know if you all can see that or not. I'll do one more of her. Then we'll change my other one. So roll this back. Oh, one thing I wanted to say too, and it didn't really matter on this one as much. Normally what I like to do to keep, especially if you have some intricate patterns, I like to use cornstarch. Normally if I'm texturing the entire surface, I'll cornstarch all of it and then roll over it. Since I'm only doing a little piece of it, I was just gonna go ahead and just, using a little makeup brush, just cornstarch the surface of it a little bit, just in case there's any little crevices or tiny holes. It won't pick the clay up as you roll across it. So, all right, spin it, knock off the excess. I'll go back here again, very lightly, almost not even touching it. There, roll back to get it off of it. Go ahead and apply my pressure. And roll it in there. Nice print on that one. Okay, now I'm gonna take it off and change out. I'll do my little guy one, a little boy jack-o'-lantern look. Add a little cornstarch to it, just in case. Spin it around, knock the excess off. All right, start with him. Again, I'll put his face about where I want it, slowly back it up, get it off, add pressure, and roll his face in. And then I got one more I'm gonna try. This was my little one, kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas, I guess, whatever it's called. It's got a little, that kind of a look to it, jack-o'-lantern. Spin it off. I'll take this one, same thing. I'll turn it upside down. I'll place it about where I want it to be. I'll slowly back it up, not adding hardly any pressure so it doesn't imprint the clay. Now when it's smooth, I have my pressure. Slowly roll across, keeping pressure. And I got my face. All right, so those have been rolled. Now you may see, well, there's some little, I can see a little bit of the edges of the roller, and that's no problem at all. Once we get it wrapped up and stuff, we can easily smooth all that out. And that'll all go away. So I've got the basic prints in here. And so now I want to lay it down and cut these out so that I can then shape them and start to put them together. So put away my cornstarch. There. All right, and got that. All right. Put my roller over here for now. So I'm gonna lay this back down on here. Actually, I don't. I've already got the lines. They aren't moving much. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut. I got these little scalpels with the interchangeable blades. I love these. I used to just use a regular fetting knife, and I still use this some. But I got these little scalpels. I can get different tips to them and just pop them on there, and if they start to get dull, I just pop them out. They were cheap on Amazon. I really like them, so I use these to do a lot of my cutting now. So now I have the rough edge. I've got the little dots I put around, so then I'll just go in here and just cut the clay out. Now I'll just separate these out a little bit so they can kind of finish setting up, and I can go ahead and cut the flap out of them too. They're still a little bit too wet for me to. Oh, there's a little. Well, luckily that's going to almost get cut out with my flap. So if I use my little stamp tool, and again I like to throw some plastic on it just so it'll go ahead and round it. Because normally what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and lay this edge on here like this, and I'll just rub it. I'll take a piece of plastic, I'll rub these top edges, and that just gives it kind of a nice little radius. It kind of softens that edge a little bit. Like I said, then we can come back in and we can get all this other stuff out. But it just kind of softens that edge. I don't worry as much about the bottom because I'm going to be attaching it to a bottom, but I usually go ahead and do the top, and then I'll flip it over and do the same on the back. And again, I don't worry about the ends because it's going to have an overlapping flap. And these I'm not going to be cutting and joining, so I don't need to worry about cutting them at the 45 and joining them up because I will be overlapping these. It's just a nice way to evenly, just put a nice little radius on it, is all. And like I said, we'll go out and clean up all the lines that are on it there. So anyway, oops, I was about to throw my plastic away. If I want to go ahead and cut this, I'll go ahead and lay this on it too, so it'll be close. But like I say, it's barely off. So when I go to cut it, it just leaves a little edge there that I have to go back and clean up. I just need to reprint it. But it does nice because it does a nice repetitive tongue and keeps kind of the same shape. There, but you can see, I don't know if y'all can tell, that was a pretty big one there that I'm going to go back and smooth down, and I'll smooth them this way down and just kind of blend it in. Again, right now it's really soft clay, but this kind of puts the initial little roundness on the tab for me, and it just makes sure I don't have to clean it up as much at the end. So there. Okay, so there we have the beginnings of our jack-o'-lantern mugs. So I'm going to let these set up for a little while, and I'll probably go ahead and throw some plastic on my other slab over here, because again, I'm probably going to do a lot of bottoms, 4 bottoms for these. And whatever's left from the bottoms, then I'll make more stakes out of them. So, but I'm going to go ahead and cover that up so it doesn't dry out as fast as this does, so it'll be in good shape when it's time. That was a big one there. Anyway, so there are the beginnings of our mugs. So I'll let these dry out, and I'll bring you guys back, and we'll show you how we form them up. I am back in the studio, and these have been resting for a little bit, so they've hardened up just a little. They're a little easier to handle, so I'm going to go ahead and start forming them. So the first thing I do is I just create the ring. Normally I have one of these that the stamp wasn't as deep as I wanted it to be, so I'm going to start with it. That way if I mess it up, all my learning experiences is on the worst one. So I always start with the worst one when I'm doing this. Also, while I was off camera, I went ahead and went around with my little mud tool and just cleaned up all of the little marks from the stamp and just smoothed a lot of it out. So it's pretty much ready to go now. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna start off here. And again, this is mainly so I can determine what size I want to make these mugs. Because if I'm doing my bigger ones, I already know what size I'm making them, so I just kind of put them together and they work. This one I'm going to see how big they're going to be so I can figure it out. So what I normally do is I'll lay them out and I overlap them just a little bit here. And I don't know if you can see on here, but I will overlap just past where it starts to go down. So a lot of my flap is actually way over, but I have one good solid line that is connected. So I'll do that. I will take my needle tool. I'll go ahead and just lightly drag out where the little flap indication is. And this is more just so I know where to score it when I put them together. And then I'll go inside and do one up the inside. All right, so now I've got kind of a little outline of where to score it. And on the inside, I have a line there. Then I will take my metal rib with my, I don't know, what are those things called? The little teeth on it, I guess. And I'll go ahead and score my clay. All right, score the inside. I'll come to the outside and score this one. And I go up to my little line. I don't want to go too far over the line because then I'll have to go and do a lot more cleanup. So I just try to go up to the little scarred line for my flap. And as you see there, I've got it all scored now. So it is ready to put together. Now, I have magic water, and I can't remember exactly what it is, what it's got in it. I make it up in a big gallon and pour it into my containers. It's got a sodium carbonate, I think, some vinegar and water. I can't remember. I've got it written down somewhere. Anyway, and what I'll normally do is I'll mark these, whether it's going on dark clay or white clay or light clay, just because putting it on with the paintbrush, you end up getting it back into it and it discolors it a little bit, and I don't want to bring this into a white clay use on it. That way I can just keep using it and it doesn't matter if it gets a little clay in there. So anyway, so since this is Cinco Rojo, it is a red clay, I want to use my dark clay. I just have two brushes I'll typically use depending on the amount of slip I'm putting, or amount of magic water I'm putting down. And I will go in and go with a bigger one this time because it's a little bit bigger area. So just kind of stir this around. Let me move it over. For some reason I got my phone out here. Let me move my phone over. And I can set it on this side. And that way I can at least spin this, if it doesn't get in the way. So I'll go ahead and just put a good coat of magic water on all of the scored clay. And this just helps me get a good seal when I put my clay together. And I'll make sure and do the inside as well. Okay, that's ready. Now I fold it back and I kind of go back to my line. I line it up with where I had it and just start pinching it together. I get a good seal. Okay. Then I want to make sure I've got it kind of round as I'm putting this seal down, because I'm going to clean up that that crack and seal there. There's a couple different tools I use for this. One is just a small flower pot. You get a nice small flower pot, you can lift this up, set it down, just set this on top of the flower pot, and then you have a nice round edge. I also 3D printed some different cones I use when I'm doing a lot of these shapes too. Again, same principle, but the little small flower pots work great. So, and I usually will lose it. When I'm making my mugs like this, I use it because I'll put it on upside down, and as I'm flaring this out to make it wider, the flower pot's nice because you have good access to it and you can get to everything. So I'll just put it on the flower pot now just to make sure it's rounded, it's the right shape I need, it's the right size. Now I'm going to kind of determine what size is this now that I put it together. It's almost too small for my 85. My 85 goes inside of it, so I'm probably going to have to go with 100, which actually the 100 may be, it's almost exactly. So actually, I don't have to move it at all. So I'm going to go with 100 and it'll fit this perfect. Normally, if I was going with the 120 for my flared out mugs, I would hold this up there and use it as a guide. As I stretch it out, I stretch it all the way around and make it fit this. Then I know it'll fit my cut bottoms. So since this is 100, I'm just going to leave it like this. There, I can go ahead for now and take it back off my mold. And a lot of times I'll leave them on that just to get it as it sets up, just so it stays round. Now what I'll do normally is I'll take my little serrated edge here and I'll kind of go over this inside just to soften it up a little. There. I'll take my other tool here and I'll either dip it in the magic water or just regular water. I'm gonna stick in regular water back here just to get it a little wet. And I'll add pressure on the outside edge so it doesn't deform too much as I kind of drag at an angle just to smooth that edge out. And this is just basically forming the inside and making sure it's nice and smooth on the inside. All right, now I'm joined, but if I look, I've already deformed it because I was pushing it on the edge, so it's a little bit deformed there. I can sometimes smooth this out, but a lot of times I'll just go in here with my knife and just cut this little bitty edge I've already put up here, and that just helps me when I'm smoothing it later. It's not a lot of extra to build in. Okay, we got that. Then I will go ahead and normally I'll take my smaller brush. I'll just go in here with some magic water again. And what I'll do is I'll brush it down the crack here just to make sure I got a good seal on this crack before I go in and clean it up. But this actually cleans it up a lot anyway. But it just makes sure there's a good seal there. And then I'm gonna take another tool and go over it again. I'll show you that. Okay, got that. And then I've got my just little rubber. I use the little rubber tip. This one, there's several different ones I use. This one's just basically conical shape to a point. There's some I use that are flat. There's one I use like this that's like a half circle, and that does really well at the sides. But for the flaps, I really like this pointy one because it kind of gets down right in that crack, and it helps to just push the clay into it, and it cleans it up and seals that edge off, so it makes it nice and finished looking. And any of the magic water clay that is seeped out, it kind of just puts it in that crack and finishes it off. There we go. So I've got that on there, and if I want just to even give it a little better finish, I can go back over it again. I'll go back with the magic water. I'll go back over it again with the brush, and again, it just kind of smooths out anything that was sticking out or hanging over there. All right. So that is that. Then let me put it back on my thing here to make sure it's centered. It is centered. I may go around now. I've got a little piece of plastic here and just kind of round this inside edge out a little. And this is the top lip where you'll be drinking from, just to make sure this top edge is nice and rounded and cleaned up. And I say, the plastic does a good job of smoothing it out a little bit. You can use a rib to do this, anything you want. I like the plastic. It gives me a nice smooth. I can almost work it with the plastic here. Again, just smoothing out. We're just trying to cut down so it's not there aren't any harsh edges underneath it there, because we're not going to mess with the top rim much. The top rim, now that it's this size, it's going to kind of stay this size. We're actually going to be messing with the normally I would mess with the bottom edge and make it flared out, but for this one I'm going to try to keep the bottom this size too, and I'm going to try to flare the inside out. So what we're going to try to do is when we're done, we're going to try to bellow this out a little and keep this shape, but bellow out there. And then I want to try to add a few texture lines to it to make it kind of look pumpkin-y. So now that I got this, what I'll normally do is just take one of these and set it up. And I will just set this on it. So as we're resting here and waiting, it just kind of keeps it, it keeps it in its round shape. So that way I'll just leave it there. If it's going to take me a while to make all these, a lot of times I'll go ahead and cover that in plastic, but I'll be able to make these pretty quick. So let me finish making all these round, and then we'll get back and start talking about bottoms and how to bellow everything out. So we'll see you guys in just a few minutes. We are back now. Going to go ahead and cut the bottoms. If you remember, when we measured, 100 millimeters seemed like the best size for us. So I went ahead and covered up some of my work because it was taking me a little longer to get it ready. So I don't want these to dry out since I'm going to have to try to stretch them and bellow them. I don't want to get cracking. So I went in and covered them up so they'd still be nice and soft. Now we're going to cut the boards. Now I've still got a lot of work on my space here, so I'm going to cut everything over on my bed over here. I've got some of this art foam. I'm going to use this to put under the clay to cut on, just because if we go and start pushing down on this, it's going to put the imprint of the canvas back into the clay after we've already smoothed and compressed it out. So I've compressed the first side out. Let me clean my tool off, my little mud tool here. There. I'm going to go ahead and lay this down. Probably the best thing is, why don't we do this section here first, and I'll be mainly focusing on this section for my holes. I'm going to lay this back over top. Smooth this out here. And then I'm just going to flip it with the foam. There. Then I'll peel this off, and you can see just from me compressing it, I actually put a little bit of texture back in it. So if we went to start cutting, it'll even put more. So let me go ahead and just do another quick compression on this to work the canvas texture out. There we go. Okay, now we're ready to cut. I'm gonna grab my tool here and find my other plastic over here. Here we go. Again, I want to go ahead and cut it with the plastic. That just helps it to put a soft edge on the edge of it, so I don't have as much work to do when I'm done. So this is going to be the bottom. I'll tell you what. I'm going to lightly mark these. And I'll tell you why. There. All right. I've got a little stamp I want to put in the bottom of them just to try to add a little bit to the bottom feature. Let me find it here. My feet. Just a little barefoot. I like to put a little bit of my faith into all my work. So this is just some feet that I want to put in, and I'll put a little reference for these particular ones into Psalm. I have several different biblical references of God basically walking with us wherever we go. They're with us. So I'm just going to put these in the bottom. It gives a nice little accent to the bottom of the mug if you ever turn it over, because typically they're just boring. So, but this may deform it a little, so that's why I wanted to go ahead and roll it. So I'll probably go across the angle here. I'll just roll from here, roll across there, turn them a little bit, roll across there. There you go, got my feet there, and I'll do one across these. Just kind of going across the angle there. All right, and let me go ahead and put my little Psalm, where's it at? There it is, Psalms 23:4. Kind of in where I want the middle to be. Let's see. Be right here. If I want the words to be about there, I'm going to start them there, lightly roll back till I'm off the words, and just push them across. So I got it in there. Actually, it was almost stopped that because I did that. It actually imprinted it. It's so soft. Let me just start it here. There. Start it here. There. All right, so I got the words in there. Oh, forgot one. Start it here. There. And again, we can go back later and fix the little lines and stuff like that on it. The only other thing I'm going to do, and might as well go ahead and do it now, is I put my logo. I have my G3 logo that I, again, printed with my resin printer. I got a little piece of clay that stuck in there when I was doing that mug. I'm sorry, when I was doing my garden stakes. I finished the garden stakes and I was putting my logo on them. So I will go ahead and just put this on there. Again, it's not going to mess a lot of stuff up, but I'm gonna go ahead and just put this in there. So I've got my G3 logo on the bottom of these. Oops, I was almost too deep. Gotta be careful. Gosh, I got in my little G3 again. This is where I should have dusted these and I forgot, because as you can see, like in my logo here, the clay sticks in the little bitty grooves. If I were to put a little of the dust down first, the cornstarch down, it wouldn't do this. So that's one of the reasons I do, especially when it's a little wetter. There, and then put one over here. There we go. All right, so I'm logoed. I've got the rolls. I've got everything on the bottom we need. Let me put my little feet roller back. Now we're ready to actually roll these. So what I want to do is lay this down. Try to smooth it out. And these I will just go ahead and roll them all since they're a little bit further apart. I can barely see my ring, so I'm going to lay this over there till it kind of is in the center there. Push this 100 down. Make sure it's in there good. There. Then actually I am going to lift it because they are a little closer. Because what will happen is it'll get stuck like that in these. Then when you go do the next one, it really pulls and it can deform that edge as it pulls in this next one. Now there's that one. It looks like there is my outline I made. So push that down good. Okay. Pull that up. Let's go to the next one. There, I can see the outline was about there. Okay, now let's do the last one. That gives me 4 feet, or 4 bottoms, I should say, not feet. All right. All right, there we go. So I have 4 round bottoms that are ready to go on my mugs. Now, oops, I don't want to throw that plastic away. I'm going to go ahead and put the plastic back on the rest of this again, because I'm going to make garden stakes out of what's left. But let me go ahead and get these off and out of the way. They're actually a little too soft, so. If I try to work these, they're going to deform too much. So I'm going to finish wrapping the rest of my mugs that are on the, I got one more mug there that's not wrapped. Just put these here, and I'm going to lay these down and give them, 30 minutes or so, and they will stiffen up a little bit, so they won't deform as much, because right now they're just a little bit too wet. Being under the plastic, they didn't dry at all. So I'm going to move this back over. This is the first one we're going to do, and this one's already stiffening up. You can start to see it holding its shape. So I'll put this under here, the rest of these are under here, and they'll stay won't get too much harder than that. I'm gonna let these set up for a little bit, and then we will check the size, because again, I want to make sure these are the exact size. It's easier if your mugs are too small. So when you're making these, if your mugs are a little bit smaller than your feet, if you're hand making, it's easy then to hold this guide up and push the mug out and make it this size. It's a little harder if your mug is already bigger to make it pushed in. It's harder to compress it than it is to stretch it. So it's better, and I hope I did this. I'm hoping these are about right, but I tried to make them just a barely smaller than the 100 millimeters so I could stretch them out just a little bit and then put these feet on the bottom of them. So anyway, I will let these sit for a little while, and then we will come back and start putting bottoms on mugs. I am back, and it is time to put some bottoms on some mugs. So I'll let the bottoms set up for a little bit. They're a little bit stiffer, so they won't deform as much as we put them on. Let me grab my first one. Again, this is my one that was, the stamping was not quite as deep as I wanted. I can also put it on here, put it upside down, make sure it's centered good. Then I want to take my cutter foam, which I cut the feet out of, or the bottoms out of, just to make sure it's the right size. And it actually looks like it's a little bit too big. So I'm going to just push it in just a little bit and try to manipulate in just a little. And we can actually go in and smooth it out and clean it up later. But I want to get as much contact as I can. So I say it's always better if it is smaller, or I'm sorry, yeah, smaller than you need, because it's easy to go in here and with your fingers slowly work it out. So, all right, so what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna set this aside, take my feet that we have ready, or bottom, oh, I keep saying feet, bottom that we have ready. We'll turn this one over here. This will be our inside surface. I'm gonna go ahead and score the edge of it. This is where the mug will contact it. All right, and I still have this sitting on my flower pot upside down. So I'm gonna go ahead and just verify it is upside down, and I'm gonna go ahead and score the bottom of this. And I really want to score where I did my joint. In case that joint wasn't done smoothly, I want to make sure it's kind of flat through there. Because if you get it off and there's a big gap, it's going to be hard to fill that. And you potentially may have a little hole in the bottom of your mug that the liquid can get out. So I want to make sure that's fairly smooth and flat as it goes through that joint where we sealed them up. All right, now I'm going to go back and do the magic water again. I don't really, I don't use slip. I actually have some slip for this clay. And I mean, every now and then I'll play with it, but magic water's always worked really good for me. So I don't really use a slip. I will on these bottoms just to make sure I get connection, because I also don't go back on the inside with a coil either. So I want to make sure I get a good seal on here. So once I apply the magic water, I will take my serrated rib and just run back across it again to scratch it up, just to make sure we have some good fresh clay that we're joining together. All right, so I put magic water on both of those. I'm gonna get my serrated rib, which is back under my magic water. I'm just gonna lightly go with this again, just to kind of make sure we have a good fresh joint here that we're going to seal these up. All right, that looks good. Take a rag, wipe this off. We do this side. And for this, I'm kind of trying to go at a slightly different angle than I did the first time, just to cross scratch it a little bit. And again, just trying to make sure we have a good joint there. All right, we look good there. Now, it is time to join. So I'll take this one here. This is my bottom. And I basically just take this off and we will put it on here. I like to set it on. I like to twist it a little bit from different sides and work it in, and that just makes sure we get that good joint there. Once I think we have that joint, I'll typically take this and put it back on my flower pot. Then I can go around here and kind of push this in and try to work this joint as best I can here now. Kind of pushing down as I go, pushing up as I go, just again to work around, make sure we have a good joint there. And then what I can do now is take my, where did I put it? My little, oh, here it is, a little serrated rib again. And I like just to go around and just lightly touch this joint this way. This just breaks up that surface a little. so I can go back and smooth it out. And this way I'm getting both on the surface of the mug and the surface of the bottom edge. So both of them have a little bit of a rib there. Now I can go back and I can do it with my finger if I want. Usually I'll start with a rib. I'll get a little bit damp just so it doesn't have as much friction dragging across, and lightly rub it. This takes both the serrated texture out and just kind of make sure I have a decent joint there. When I'm doing a bowl with a bottom that's up, I'll a lot of times take it and I'll kind of roll it around, like, let me show you, to help seat it better. You can take it on a surface like this and at like a 45, just kind of roll your edge around. This just helps make sure it's compressing a little bit, and it gives you a little bit rounder edge on the bottom. So once you do that, if you can see, it kind of puts a nice little like a 45 edge on there, and it also makes sure you have good compression, and you can kind of go back and smooth it out again. It just helps give you good compression again, because I don't go and put coils on the inside. So normally when I do this, it's enough that I've never had a problem with a crack on my joint at the feet. Or, I'm sorry, at the bottom. I don't know why I keep calling it feet. At the bottom. It's still a little messy back here where this joint is, and I'm going to take one of my little, I don't know what they call them, these little rubber tools here, and I'm going to go back and clean it up. And this just helps clean these, takes any hard edge off. But I'll go back to this area and just run this tool back and forth on all the surfaces, and it just smooths that area back out. I can get the kind of the finish I want for that joint there, where they're coming together. You just have to be careful, because this one I picked does have a sharp edge, and if you drag it too close in these corners, it will put an edge in there. Then I can go back and finish it off with the conical one, just to finish it, make sure I don't have any edges in there. All right. So that's got that one finished. Okay, so now we have a base on it. Now it's going to be time for us to try to bellow out the belly of it. So what I want to do is take this off and set it down. So now I have a flat one with a flat bottom. Now what we're going to be trying to do is really carefully, I forgot about this. I will usually go in here because of all the serrated edges I did when I scratched the bottom to make the joint. There's always a little bit on, you probably won't be able to see it on the video, but inside of it you see scratches left. Since I don't do a coil there, I do take my little wood tool, and I can't remember what it's called. It comes with all of the pottery basic kits when you buy it, but I love this tool. I use it all the time. And I just go back in on this edge and just smooth out all of the score lines, and also kind of rub it into the corner, and it just smooths that corner and seals anything in that corner and gives it a nice sharp corner. Once I've gone all the way around and the corner looks good, the edges look good, all of the serrated marks are gone, and it looks like I have a good joint on the inside, I'll go back with my magic water and my paintbrush and just paint it around the edge. Again, anything that left over, it just smooths it out. Any little marks, it helps get rid of those. It just helps to, kind of push that slip around as you go, and it just kind of helps seal it. Make sure you have a good seal on the inside of your mug. Okay, done. We have a good seal. Now, for the tricky part. So now what I want to do is I want to start swelling out the main part of this. Normally I'll just use regular water, and you have two options. We can either do the a tool like this where we can hold it. And I'll probably start with this. This is one of the better tools. You can also use some of your little wooden kidney-shaped tools to do it, or you can just use your fingers to do it. But we'll start off. I'll probably use this tool is what I'm used to using, just to get it going. I'm gonna dip it in regular water just to make sure it's wet and liquid. You want to hold support at the top because you don't want your top to expand. You only want the middle to expand. So I'm holding pressure here as I just start rubbing up. So I'm going around, just nice and slow. Going around just nice and slow, dipping as you need. You don't want to do it too fast because then you will get your, you'll start to get cracks in it. And again, it's important to put pressure against your lip, otherwise you're just going to push your lip out. Now where it's the hardest for my design is right here at this joint, because I've got double wall thickness there because of the overlap. So you got to be really careful. I push it a little extra just to get it to bow out and match the rest. As you can see, it's starting to slowly bow out and take a shape. And again, I'm just trying to get that kind of pumpkin shape to it. And again, you want to add, I'm adding pretty good pressure to it, but not too bad because I don't want to really crack a lot of these outside edges. And your inside, your bottom should hold. We got a good joint on it. We've joined it up good. It shouldn't push away. If it starts to push away, you just got to go back and kind of reseal it. But now that we've got it on there, it should stay pretty good. You may have to clean it up a little bit. So, all right, I've kind of gone around once. Now I'm kind of going to the next. Now you want to kind of, as you can see, as I'm going around, it's pushing a lot more in the middle, but it's not as much at the top. It depends on where you hold your pressure. If you hold your pressure down a little lower, your bellow is going to happen lower. If you hold it right at the tip, your bellow is going to almost come up to the tip. So I'm going to try to move my hand up a little and put my pressure up right at the tip, and that'll allow my bellow to come up a little bit higher. And again, we're doing this by hand. So once you start to get it going, we're gonna have to look at it and start to really shape it because it's going to be doing it uneven, just because it's by hand. And then we're gonna have to go back and kind of add areas and all that. And I don't want to get too much because I want to try something. I've never done this, so you'll get to experiment with me. But I'm gonna try to put some kind of pumpkin texture on it, where I bellow it out in between around the stick. And I want to see if that'll work to give it a little bit of that pumpkin thing. All right, so now you can see, sit back, look at it. If you see some areas, you can go in here and just push them as you go at the bottom. But you want kind of a nice even bow on this. Especially where your jack-o'-lantern face is here. Okay, so I've got it kind of basic. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of starting to bow out. It's starting to round off a little to give a little shape. Now, before it gets too defined, let me wipe off my clay here. What I want to try to do, and this is where I'm going to experiment with it, is I want to, let me clear out the bottom again where I touched it with the stick. Smooth it out again all the way around. All right, so what I want to try to do is make it where it has like little lines in it, if you will, almost like little pumpkin lines. So what I'm going to try to start doing is take this. I want to kind of lay down where I want it to go, wet my fingers, and I'm going to be trying to run my fingers up both sides of this stick. By doing that, it should make the clay bend around the stick and start to bellow out around it. So I'm going to stand up for this. Let's see how it works. So I got this wet. I want to make sure the inside of it's wet. probably going to work best to use these two fingers just with the size of the bowl and the shape of my fingers. So I want to try to do this here and feel it. Now I don't want to go all the way to the top because I don't want it to go all the way to the rim necessarily. Okay, so that's the start of it, and you kind of get the idea. It'll kind of add a little bit of a texture, a little rib, kind of a pumpkin shape. So what I'm going to do now is move over a little bit to about here and try it again. Again, holding it in, kind of rotating the stick as I go up the pumpkin. Go back down. Now as we're going, we can start to see some of this shape. Then I can come back in here once I get this shape, and with my finger I can slowly kind of push it out to fill out the shape in between it. So I'm going to go pretty much all the way around the pumpkin now and add these little bump outs. Okay, now I have that shape around. Now I just want to go back and just kind of fill it out, form it out, make sure it's like I want. I'm going to go in here and clean these up here. Just again, rubbing your fingers up as you go. To get into these, you can hold it down, just kind of rub each of these out a little. You can already start to see it crack as I'm doing this. I got a little bit there. It's almost getting a little bit dry on the outside. Over here I have to be really careful on my flap because I did it right near my flap and it was starting to peel up. So I'm just kind of going right up the center of each one, just trying to accentuate it, maybe is whatever the word is. Anyway, so then you just kind of get back, give it a spin. Make sure it's kind of look like you want. Looks pretty good. Now the next thing we'll do is, once we finish all of them, we will add a handle to the side and we are ready to go. So let me go ahead and do the bottoms and stuff to the rest of these, and I'll bring you guys back when we get ready to do the handles. I am back and we are ready to start making handles. I did raise my garage door up. It was starting to get a little too hot. So there's a little more light coming in, so the light may look a little different, just so I can stay cool. So when it comes to handles, they're probably my nemesis. I love the look of the hand-pulled handles. I always struggle with pulling by hand. I've tried just straight extruding, and I don't like the looks of being the same shape, and constant. So what I've come up with is a hybrid. I actually extrude out a shape, and I created a shape and size that works for me, that I like, that fits into my hand extruder. So what I'm going to do is put this in. I extrude out a bunch of strips, and then I cut them, and then I hand pull those to make them a little thinner on one side. So they're thicker at the top, thinner on the bottom. I'll shape those to fit my mugs, but I need to let those set up for a minute. I've got one more mug to finish, but I wanted to go ahead and get the handles started so they'll be ready to attach once I get this other mug finished. So if we start off, let me just put my my extruder in here, plate in here. I already got some clay that I kind of pounded down into the shape I need. And I apologize, my workspace is getting busier and busier and busier as we go on. Anyway, I'm gonna push this down in there. And like I say, this is gonna make a lot more handles than I need. So what I'm actually gonna do is I have a damp box over here. And what I'll end up doing is, after I extrude them all, I'll pull the handles that I need. I'll put the rest in my damp box, which is basically just a plastic
bin that's got about 1.5 to 2 inches of plaster in the bottom, and you add a little water to the bottom, put it in there, and it keeps it moist really for months. So I can then just pull them out when I need them and hand pull them. Normally I'll do them in larger quantities just so I don't have to get the extruder out every time I need 3 or 4 handles. So let me put this on here. It's kind of full, so it's wanting to push as we go. Here we go. Now we got it going. All right, we're already starting to pull out here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and extrude. Let me clean this off so I don't pick up any extra scrap stuff as I go. I'll lay this down. I'll just start extruding. Cut that off, and I'll clean this out a little bit. All right, so now I have my strips here. Normally, let me see where my ruler was, laying right here. I think I actually took it inside to do some drawing. So, but normally I'll get them about, you take the length of that. Usually it's not quite this long to here, 4 inches-ish or so, 5 inches is normally the length I'll cut them, and then when I pull them it makes them longer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of estimate about where I need these, and you might not be able to see it because of all this other stuff on my bench. Take about there, about halfway between there. Let's take it about there somewhere, there, about there. Cut this one in half. Start on this side, come down to about here, and about there, out there, and then cut this one in half. All right, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 little tubes ready to pull some handles. So I only need 4 today, so I'll go ahead and start pulling 4. If I get 4 pulled that I really like, I'll just stick the rest in my damp box. If I mess one up, I'll grab another blank. So I forgot to get my water. Let me go grab some water that we can dip this in, and we can start pulling these handles. I have my water now, so now we're gonna start to pull some of these. And again, I've already got these kind of in the shape I want, this oval shape. This is, pretty much how I want the top of my handle to look. So what I'm gonna do is just pull it down a little thinner for the bottom part. So let me start here. I'm just gonna go ahead and dip it. And then you just grab on this top and just start pulling. Oops, and that's what I always do. I always grab too much and it starts to pinch it. And that's why I just hate this. Maybe I'm just not patient enough, but I'll start to pinch too hard, and it causes those kinks, and then they just fall off. Again, I've tried to pull these, and I'm gonna pass on that one. I've tried to pull these, and maybe if I just keep doing it, it'll eventually come to me. But again, if I'm not patient enough, and I know you got to start at the bottom, and maybe that's my problem. I start too high, so that's why I get the kinks in the middle. But when I'm about done, I like to kind of flatten them out just a little bit so they're a little bit flatter. So I'll run just my hand in one direction for a little bit just to kind of get them more in that flat oval pattern. Shape them up a little bit. Again, I got this bottom that's doing weird things. It always happens. All right, so there's one. And I'll go ahead and just kind of set it on the table here. Just a little bit oval, up like that. I'll shape it in a minute because I'll have to cut it and all that, but at least it kind of starts forming the right way. So let me go ahead and dip this one. All right, there's 4 that I think I can use. So let me stick these in my damp box, clean up a little bit. I'll go ahead probably and figure out what size I need so I can go ahead and cut the handles to the right length, and then I usually lay them on my board in the shape I want them in and let them sit up for a little bit so they get a little bit more leather hard before I actually attach them. So anyway, let me clean up and I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and size up the handle and kind of show you how I finish some of these off a little bit before we attach the handle. So I've got this one ready. Normally the way I attach the handles is I have my little fold over, and I go just past the fold over is where I put my handle when I'm doing these. So what I will do is I will take this one I've already kind of bent over, and it's going to go over here. I can see, okay, I'll probably have it about this thickness. Looks good to me here. So let me cut this. Cut it at a slight curve just so it'll match. It's going to go up here like that, and then this is going to go out, bend down, probably about just right here at the bottom. Cut this. Again, just at a little bit of an angle. So it'll end up fitting on here like this and like that. I'll probably bend it up just a hair, but it'll kind of be going on about here. So I will go ahead and take this, lay it on the ground, and kind of mimic that shape. And that way it'll set up that way. Now while I've got these cutoffs, there's a little feature I'll do to these. And I'll show you. Get my little tool here. Actually, I'm going to get a different one. It's a little tool I use to mark my patterns. I have one that's a little bit bigger. Here it is. It just has a little bigger wheel on it. And what I want to do is I want to add some almost like stitching. I like to just put 2 little rows around my flap so it looks like it's been sewn in place. It just gives a little bit of stitching, just adds to it. So I'm going to take this, roll it around, follow the edge slowly, follow the edge, turn slowly, go back around. So there I have my first stitch in. Now I'm going to go put my second stitch. Just go right up next to it. And now I'm doing my second stitch. Whoops, got off a little bit. That's all right. It's handmade. It's supposed to be off. Anyway, I got my second stitch there. And then what I like to do is I like to add just a little, it almost looks like a little rivet or something, almost like a little button, if you will, right here in the center of my flap. I have a custom stamp I made. It's just a little dome with a little cross in it. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of clay, since I just have some trimming from that, from the handle I just made. I'll take just a little dollop of clay here. This is set up for just a little bit, so I'm going to go in here with my tool, and I'm going to just scratch it up just a hair in the center there, and I'll go ahead and just flatten a little bit of this off too, just so it's there. Then I'll take my brush. Whoops, I already sealed up my magic water here. Dip my brush in my magic water, put a dot on here. I'll put a dot on this. Then I make sure and support it from the inside, because when I go to push it, it will push my whole thing in. So I go and push that in place there. And this is probably a little too big. I should have made it a little smaller. And then I take my stamp, put it right in the center of it, mash it down, and let it go. Then I've got just a little, like, it's almost like a little wax seal that's on there now. And it's just something I put on all mine. It goes right up there in the little corner. All right, so that was ready to go. So now the only thing left to do with this one is to put the handle on. So I will go ahead and put this one aside. I'm going to get my other ones, get them marked, get them with a little seal on it. I've got one more mug that I've got to bellow out and get ready. But I'll go ahead and cut the rest of my handles so they can be setting up, and then we'll be ready to attach the handles in the next step. I am back, and now it is time to attach the handles, which is really the easiest part in my opinion. Once you've got all this made, it's just getting them all lined up and looking right. So what I do now is uncover one of my mugs. And again, I like to put the handle right over here on this side of the flap. So we'll end up going right here. I'm going to go ahead and trim it down just a little, put a little bit of an angle on this. So I go in with my knife, cut it down a little bit so it'll fit better. And the bottom I'm doing okay. So what I'm doing is kind of laying it up here, getting it kind of where I want it in place. Hold it in place with your fingers. Get your needle tool and just put a few marks just to know where it is. Just have an idea kind of where to scratch, and what you want to do then is just score the surface. So again, I'll take my tool here, score it there, bottom down here, score it there. Okay, then we'll go ahead and add some magic water. Add a little magic water to the handle too after you've scored it. Okay. Then again, support it on the inside, otherwise you're going to deform your shape. Come in here. I like to move it around, wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it, get it in there just good, wiggle it back and forth, just like you want it. Then bring this down. And then you want to kind of back up and look, because otherwise you will get it crooked. And come in here. And again, same thing, wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it, push it in place, wiggle it there. All right, now you got your handle attached. Then I like to come back first with my brush and just brush the seam real good. And that basically brushes away any slip and stuff that would have squeezed out during the process. And if you have any little score lines that are left over outside of your area, it kind of does that. All right. Then again, I take my little rubber tip tools again, and I'll go fix it. If there's an area that's not really seated right, I'll use this and just work it down and blend it in all the way around and get a nice kind of finish. Blend it in. All the way around this edge here where you joined it up. And then again, take the brush again, put a little magic water, and right where you blended it, kind of paint over it. That smooths out your blend in case you have any edges or something, or rough edges are in there. It just smooths all that blend you just did out. All right. Then you want to set it up and look at your shape, see if it's what you want. Reposition it. If it's not, get it just like you like it to look. I usually then touch up if I have any pull marks left in it or something. I'll try to smooth them out and shape it up there. Do any final little tweaks to it. And that mug is now ready to go. And I will stick it on a wear board, and I will cover it in plastic for a few days, and then I will take it out of the plastic and let it finish drying. So that way it dries really slow and it all dries, at the same rate. And then I will go to the next step, and I'll take you guys all the way through this process. So next step is, before I bisque fire it, I would like to underglaze the jack-o'-lantern face with black, so it kind of really sets in, and then we'll go to glaze firing it after that. So we'll walk through the whole process, and I will show you the finished mug when we are done. So I'll see you guys probably in a few weeks, and we will get it ready for bisque firing. Hello and welcome back to G3 Pottery here. We're working on our pumpkin mugs. So it's been about 2 weeks. The mugs got bone dry. I went ahead and bisque fired them yesterday. One thing I forgot to do was show you guys how I was adding the underglaze. So I made 4 white and 4 of the Cinco Rojo. And I added black underglaze to the stamped areas that I'm going to now glaze over. So the way I add the underglaze, you can kind of see what it looks like there. The way I add it is usually with some type of an applicator. This is one applicator I use for some of the black underglaze. It has a needle. It's about 18 gauge needle. Also, I use syringes. This gives me a little bit more control, so that way I can apply the underglaze. If it's too much, I can back it out and suck it back up. This one's a little bit harder to control the flow. This one's a little easier to control the flow. And then I also have some little 23 gauge syringes I use if I need to get into really fine detail like lettering or that type of thing. So I'll use these. So I'll go around and add those. Now today I'm waxing. So I thought, well, I'll show you a little bit of waxing because it's the same application. I have some new wax. I'm actually trying out this Laguna wax. We'll see how it does. Mine was getting old and running low. Normally I'll put a few drops of food coloring in it just to add a little color so it's easier to tell where you've waxed. But anyway, I'm using the larger 18 gauge needle for this one. You could water down the wax and use the 23 gauge as well. I did go ahead and label my syringes with wax. It's hard to clean this out. You have to get almost boiling water to get all the wax out, and you don't want to mix this then later with your underglaze. So you want to keep those completely separate. Same way with my paintbrushes. I use a paintbrush for some of my wax application, and I'll mark that paintbrush so I know it's for wax application. Another thing is I use a lot of these foam brushes. They work great. I'm going to go ahead and wax the bottom of these as well, just to get all this ready to glaze. So it's ready to go. So I'll use the foam applicator for the bottoms, and I'll use my syringes to fill in the details on it. As far as glazing goes, I'm actually going to try 4 different glazes. So I've got one white glaze that I make myself as my own recipe, and I will probably dip this kind of Night Bear Before Christmassy mug into the white glaze I made. And then I've got this other white that I really liked. It's a Georgie's. It's the Northern Lights, the GLW46. I've never used it before. I like the way it looks. So I'm going to test this on the white Night Bear Before Christmas mug, because I kind of like the white look on this style mug. So I'm going to use this one for that one. I've got some Celadon glaze. This is the Tangelo, the Amico Tangelo C65. I'm going to use this on my other white mugs. And then I got a new Western pumpkin gloss. I'm going to use the pumpkin gloss on these other Cinco Rojo red dark clay bodies. I'm going to try this one. I've never used Western glaze before, so we'll see how it comes out. So anyway, so for now I am going to just finish waxing everything and get it ready to glaze. I'll let that completely dry. Then I'm going to come back and glaze everything, and then we will load up the kiln. So I will kind of start this, and I'm not going to bore you with all the waxing, but I'll kind of give you an idea how we do it. One thing that if you are using a syringe, all right, sorry about that. I was interrupted with my wife leaving. So anyway, but if you're using the syringe, sometimes, especially when you're doing the underglaze, you will the tip will get a little clogged up, especially with greenware. You'll start to get a little stuff on there. It'll start to dry, and it'll get kind of hard to push in. You don't want to keep pushing, because what will happen is it'll finally just spit a bunch of underglaze out all over your new work, which is very difficult to clean up. So what you want to do, if you start to apply it and it starts to, get a little resistant or not come out, stop. You can open it up. My recommendation, you suck it back in a little bit and clean it. You wipe it off, and then you start pushing it forward, and then you'll start to see it come back out. Wipe it off, and you should be good to go to continue. So just be really careful not to force it out. Even with a squeeze bottle, when it gets that way, don't force it, because it'll spit all over your work. If you do make a mistake while using wax, the best thing to do is to refire it, bisfire it, that is, because that'll burn the wax off. Trying to clean it, trying to wipe all the wax off, get it off, it's going to cause problems with your glazing. You're going to see something there with your glaze. So it's better just to go ahead and throw it in the kiln with your next bisque fire. Fire it again. That'll get all the wax off of it. Then you can try it again. So if you make any mistakes, that's the easiest way to clean it up. Also, when I'm doing my mugs, since I don't glaze the bottom, I'll usually sand them down real nice and smooth, so they just feel good to your hand if you're holding the mug. You want to do that before you wax the bottom of the mug. So clean them up, get everything clean, clean off any of these little clay boogers that are left on there. Any little tiny bumps you might want, clean it up before you glaze it. But now's the time for any prep work you want to do on your freshly bisque-fired work before you start glazing it. So anyway, so again, what I will end up doing, let me push a little out again just to make sure now I've been talking, is again, you'll take this and you can just slowly squeeze it out, and you can actually use the needle itself to kind of push it around. You can just push it around up close to the edge, come down this way, push it more in, up close to the edge, fill in the gaps, move it around. There we go. Now the nose is done. So I've got that in there. Since I have a lot of mugs, what I'm probably going to do on these is set this aside for just a minute. I'll go ahead and grab a different one and do a few things on it. I haven't used this wax before, so I'm not sure how much it's going to move. With it still wet, I don't want to rotate it too much, have it all run down to one corner and then start running out on the work, so I have to fire it again. So, the eye I've already done is pretty much dry. It's not moving anymore. I'm going to let that set for a minute. I'm going to slowly do some of the others and come back to this, do an eye, then go do an eye, come back, start the mouth. I'm going to slowly work kind of part by part to give it a few minutes to dry as I go, so I don't make any mistakes. So anyways, I'm going to finish waxing all these. I'll wax the bottoms, and then I will maybe come back and show you a little bit of the glazing process, but hopefully soon you will see a finalized fired piece. So thanks for joining me. I have almost finished waxing the faces. I still have the smiles to do, but a couple things I forgot to mention when I was talking earlier. The white ones, since I'm going to use the Celadon and it's kind of see-through, I wanted to just paint over the black. So I don't want to wax these because I want to have the glaze go over top of it so they show through the glaze. I've forgotten about that, and I started to wax this one, and I started doing the eyes on this one. So instead, I think I will end up using the Western glaze on it, since I've already kind of started, and then I'll try the Celadon on these other two. Another thing I think I forgot to mention, if you want to use the syringes, you just need to cut the tips off. What I found that works really well is a little Dremel tool with a little cutoff wheel. I just put it in the vise and just cut the tip right off. It leaves it nice and clean. If you use snips, it'll sometimes collapse the tube and you'll lose the flow out of it. But the Dremel tool seems to work really well. And then I just put on a little sandpaper and lightly hit it just to take any sharp edges off, so it's no sharp edges. So if you are going to use syringes, make sure and grind the tip off. It'll be easier to apply the whether it's underfill or whether it's wax resist. It'll be easier to apply it. So okay, let me go back and finish the smiles on all these, and then I need to do the bottoms as well. It is time for my kiln reveal for my pumpkin mug. So I thought I'd show you guys the results of the firing.
To remind everybody, I fired one using Georgie's Northern Lights glaze. I fired a couple of them, I think I already gave one of them away, using the Amico Tangelo Celadon or whatever, Celadon glaze. I'll show you that one. And then I fired some with this Western pumpkin gloss, and I'll show you those. And then I did one with just a homemade white glaze, and I'll show you that. Now I did have one kiln failure. One of my mugs, I was firing a lot of my little garden stakes, and my support broke, and my garden stakes fell on top of one of my mugs and basically fused to the mug. It was the only one I did with the Georgie's Northern Lights, and I really like the glaze. It came out really nice with the white, with hints of kind of some blue, purple hues, a little bit of green maybe. It's a lot of different colors in there. I really liked it. It's just destroyed. So I'm actually out in the shop right now, getting ready to make another couple of these, because I had some people that said if I'd make some, they'd buy them. So I'm going to go ahead and remake some of these. But I was really pleased with this one. Unfortunately, I've got to throw this one away. So the Celadon, the one I have left here is the little girl pumpkin I did. The things that I like about the Celadons is all of the stitch details I did around the flap, and some of the other things, it shows through. The Celadon is more see-through. Also, I painted over my underglaze, so it left it glossy, because it actually put the Celadon on top of the underglaze. It still shows through really strong, but it leaves it glossy where the others are not. So those are the differences, and you can still see a lot of the white coming through. So it came out really nice. I like it. Probably my favorite one though is using the Western pumpkin gloss on the Cinco Blanco white clay, because the white body still shows through a little bit, which actually adds just a lot of vibrance to the glaze. It came out very well around the masking everything off. I just, for some reason, and I don't know why, I'm just not a fan of white bottoms, and I've probably just got to get over that. I don't know why I don't like them, but I love using white clay because of the vibrant glaze colors it gives. But I just, for some reason, my pet peeve, I just don't like white bottoms. So anyway, I'm gonna try to get over that because I really like the results of these. So this one came out really nice. Now for the red clay, which again, I love the red clay bottoms, but I used the same Western glaze on it, and it still came out really nice. It just, you can see the red clay through it. So it just kind of darkens it a little bit. It mutes the vibrance a little bit. You see more highlights of the dark clay that shines through. I did 3 coats of glaze on all these. So, still came out well. But I think I like the color of the Western glaze on the white versus the red, but I just love the red. Here's another one, again with the red clay and the Western glaze. And the last one with the Western glaze and the red clay is this one. And again, very pleased. I think they all came out really well. The one I did with my own white glaze, I love this glaze because the way it breaks. It breaks really well on the red and shows the red. It shows the features. The one thing I did not like on it is it looks like, if you look at the face, some of the wax I put in the eyes to keep the glaze from clicking, it looks like during the firing it almost started to melt down and almost pushed the glaze out a little bit and left bigger rings around the eyes and around the mouth with the wax. So the glaze reacted a little bit different with the wax and kind of clumped up a little bit. My wife likes it, says it makes it look weathered, but other than that, I like the white as well. Again, on the red clay body. So things that I would probably do different. Again, overall, I think it came out great for my first attempt with pumpkin mugs. Some things I would do differently is probably with the waxing. Waxing the face and then getting all of the glaze out, because I just waxed it and just brushed. That way I didn't have to worry about missing. I just brushed over it. Then I had to come back with a little tool and try to get all the glaze out of these facial areas. And it was time consuming. Next time I may try just to glaze and just manually slowly paint the glaze on and just try to miss those spots and not wax it, and see how those come out. It'll take a little longer glazing, but it'll be a lot less cleanup. So that's one thing that I'm going to do next time. And other than that, I really don't have any other things really I want to try. Oh, one thing I did run into is some of my stamps. I don't remember which one it was. Maybe it was this one. Some of the stamps weren't as deep. And so when I rolled it on, if I didn't get a really good impression in the clay, it just made it a little bit harder in the glazing and the underglazing process to make sure and stay there, because I didn't have a good crisp hard line. So you're kind of freehand painting up to that line. So that's one thing I want to make sure. Actually, I think it was this one. That it's just barely made an imprint down here, and it was just hard getting that edge to look right. So I'm going to make, when I do these new ones out here today, I'm going to really make sure I get a good imprint with my stamp to give me some nice crisp lines, so it makes it a little easier glazing. So other than that, I think it was a success. I've already got several of these sold within a few hours of posting them. So I will probably go ahead and make one more batch, and then it's too late for this year, but I'll perfect it again for next year. But I enjoyed making them. It was a lot of fun, and I definitely will make these again. So thank you guys for joining me, and hopefully I gave you some kind of insight, some kind of tips that'll help you make some pumpkin mugs of your own, and just put your own signature on them and make them your way. But it was great going through this process with you guys. So we will see you later, and wait for the next training. Bye.